Here are the top stories for today, September 17, 2021. The Philippines updates its list of red, yellow, and green countries. 4 more states joined the red list, which means travelers from these areas are not allowed to enter. More doses of hope. Over 661,000 Astrazeneca vaccines are set to boost inoculation drive, particularly among private sector workers, in a bid to spur economic recovery amid the pandemic. The government remains on alert against terror threats. The country's defense chief says he awaits feedback from Japan regarding a request for details of its terror alert. And looking forward to the weekend, attractions in Intramuros reopen for tourists, with fully vaccinated visitors getting an express lane. Good day, I'm Marita Muaje. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Department of Health reiterates that ivermectin is still not recommended for early treatment of COVID-19. This is in response to the request of British Ivermectin Research Development or BIRD for DOH to allow the use of the medicine. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said that the DOH decision is based on existing evidences.
Based on the current evidence from randomized controlled trials, we do not recommend the use of ivermectin for the treatment of COVID-19. It has not proven to significantly reduce mortality nor to improve other clinical outcomes. So this recommendation will be updated as more evidence is generated from ongoing trials.
The Department of Health says daily COVID-19 cases in the country might range from 16,000 to 43,000 by the end of the month. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said the projection is based on the movement of the people, the status of the public health system, and compliance to the minimum health standards.
Based on the daily cases here in the National Capital Region, and based on the assumptions or projections that we have for September 30, the cases may range from 16,000 to 43,000. And the assumptions include mobility, public health capacity and system, and yung adherence sa minimum public health standards. So kapag atin pong na-improve itong mga nakalagay na factors sa assumptions, we might not reach these numbers na sinasabi natin. Katulad nung nangyari dito sa NCR nung end of August, nagkaroon ng projection that we will reach about 80,000+ active cases by the end of August. Pero nakita natin na hindi ito narating o hindi natin nakuha o itong ganitong klase na numero dahil nakapag-improve naman tayo ng ating response dito sa COVID-19 considering these 3 factors that I have just mentioned.
The Department of Health is urging the Commission on Elections to come up with alternative measures that will refrain COVID-19 positive patients from going out to cast their vote. This, as COMELEC earlier announced that it will designate isolation polling centers for voters with symptoms. While COMELEC assures that every voting center will have health screenings, the DOH says a transmission may still occur.
Alam po natin na isang positibong tao kapag lumabas po ng kanilang kwarto o ng kanilang lugar ay maaari pong makahawa ng ibang tao. So sana po COMELEC will have an alternative way of having these elections for those COVID positive patients. Baka pwede naman pong virtual na lang, digital, through SMS, kung makakagawa po tayo ng ganitong proseso, dahil talagang ang Department of Health po ay hindi po natin inirekomenda na ang mga COVID positive patients ay lalabas po ng kanilang isolation area to do this kind of activities because this might have some form of transmission and infect other people.
The Philippine government has released an updated roster of red, yellow, and green states and territories which will take effect on Sunday, September 19 until September 30. Included in the red list are high-risk countries such as Grenada, Papua New Guinea, Serbia, and Slovenia. Inbound passengers from these countries, regardless of their vaccination status, are barred from entering the Philippines. However, returning Filipinos can fly back to any of these countries through government-initiated or non-government repatriation programs, as well as through special commercial flights not covered by the travel restrictions. Meanwhile, countries classified under the green list are low-risk areas, while the yellow list is composed of countries classified as moderate risk. The government has issued protocols for fully vaccinated individuals who can avail of green lanes. More police personnel have been deployed in various outdoor tourist attractions as the IATF allows the reopening of these areas at a limited capacity. In Manila, the Rizal Park already reopened, where a maximum of 500 people are allowed to enter. Several areas in Intramuros also resumed operations at shortened hours. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar said police personnel have been instructed to courteously remind violators to follow the minimum public health standards. Eleazar also reminded business owners to thoroughly check the vaccination cards of their customers. Under Alert Level 4, dine-in services are allowed 30% for outdoor services and 10% for indoor services for fully vaccinated persons only. More areas in Metro Manila are currently placed under granular lockdown. Based on the latest data from the National Capital Region Police Office or NCRPO, Quezon City Police District has 1 municipality and 32 barangays under granular lockdown. In Northern Police District, 2 cities and 13 barangays. In Southern Police District, 2 municipalities and 3 barangays. While Manila Police District has 0 areas under lockdown. The latest data from the PNP also shows that a total of 224,626 violators were accosted in Metro Manila alone for violation of the minimum public health safety from August 21 to September 15, when NCR is under the modified enhanced community quarantine. Over 87,000 were accosted for curfew violation and over 15,000 were accosted for unnecessary travel. Meanwhile, more than 1 million violators were accosted in Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal from August 21 to September 15. The distribution of emergency cash assistance to low-income beneficiaries affected by the enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila has been completed. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said a total of 11,256,348 pesos worth of assistance funds were disbursed to 11,226,946 recipients. He said only Makati City logged a surplus in cash aid funds. The DALG earlier extended the deadline for the distribution of financial aid in Metro Manila to August 31. President Rodrigo Duterte said he would exert all efforts to hire more healthcare workers amid the prevailing pandemic. This after National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. told the President that hospitals are currently facing manpower shortage.
Sir, ito po talaga sir yung perennial po sir natin. Mr. President, kailangan po talaga nating masolve ito dahil kasi ito po ang talagang lahat ng ospital talagang kanilang pong dinadaing ay talagang kulang po sila ng doktor, nurses and other related healthcare workers.
Mag-recruit tayo ng marami niyan because the pay is good actually. We will see what we can do. We will try to look for the money to have more recruits joining this fight against COVID.
Malacanang maintains it would never allow the International Criminal Court or ICC to have jurisdiction over the Philippines as the country has a healthy justice system. Meanwhile, the Commission on Human Rights says it does not receive any formal request to participate in the investigating body. More on this from Chris Mundo.
The Commission on Human Rights said it has no role to play in the investigation launched by the International Criminal Court or ICC. The ICC's pre-trial chamber earlier approved the request of its former chief prosecutor Fatu Bensouda to authorize the full-blown probe into President Duterte's drug war even after the Philippines already cut ties with the International Tribunal. During the budget deliberations at the House of Representatives, CHR Chairman Jose Luis Gascon said there is no direct or immediate relationship of the CHR's work with the operations that will be undertaken by the Office of the Prosecutor. He also noted that CHR has not received any formal communication or request from the ICC. Meanwhile, Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo slammed the blatant and brazen attempt of the ICC to meddle in the Philippines' domestic affairs, particularly its handling of the rampant illegal drug trade in the country. Panelo maintained that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over the Philippines and its citizens. He said the ICC's latest move neither bothers nor troubles the president and his administration. For his part, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said President Duterte would not cooperate with the ICC when it starts its probe. He also said that the ICC would just waste its time and resources in probing the anti-narcotics drive in the Philippines. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
Still to come, another 661,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines arrive in the country. And the registration for the Philippine Identification System reaches a milestone amid the pandemic. Details ahead, this is the PNA Newsroom.
Ito ang Fast 5. Mayroon tayong 5 minuto para tanungin ang mga eksperto tungkol sa COVID-19.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Ana Ong Lim and I'm with the DOH Technical Advisory Group.
Anong mga sintomas ng COVID-19 ang pwede i-treat sa bahay?
So napakagandang tanong. Ang mga mild symptoms, pinakakaraniwan pa rin siya sa mga nararamdaman ng mga taong nagpa-positive sa COVID-19. Kasama na dito yung lagnat, ubo, sipon, pananakit ng katawan, yung iba nagtatae. Pinaka-importante talaga is bantayan yung hirap sa paghinga kasi once sumumpong na yon, hindi na natin pwedeng sabihin mild and definitely kailangan na siguro na makita sa ospital o makita ng kanilang doktor.
Paano natin malalaman kung pwede tayo mag-home isolation?
Magandang mapag-usapan ng home isolation kasi lalo na ngayon, maraming mga taong nasa mga TTMFs or quarantine facilities or even sa hospital. And for as long as yung ating pamamahay ay may sariling lugar or isang silid na kung saan pwedeng mamalagi yung may sakit, and mas maganda rin sana na may sarili siyang magagamit na banyo.
Ano naman ang pwede kong gawin kung meron akong lagnat?
Ang lagnat ng COVID is not any different kumpara dun sa lagnat na nadala ng ibang sakit. Kino-consider natin na may lagnat ng isang tao pagka ang kanyang temperatura ay 37.5 pataas. Now, typically, kung meron tayong lagnat, iniinuman lang naman natin to ng paracetamol. Karaniwan, isang tableta tuwing ika-4 hanggang ika-6 na oras.
Ano naman ang home treatment para sa sore throat?
Ang sore throat, karaniwan, ginagamot lang natin yan using supportive care. So tulad na lang ng saline gargles or pagmumog ng water na may konting asin, o kaya pwede ring gumamit ng mga menthol preparations or menthol candies para lang medyo maibsan yung pananakit ng lalamunan.
The Philippines has received a new batch of Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccines. Over 661,000 doses of private sector procured vaccine doses arrived via China Airlines this morning. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion, and Astrazeneca Country President Lotis Ramin welcomed the arrival of the vaccine doses at the NAIA Terminal 1. Galvez said 80% of the vaccines will be given to local government units. The Philippines is expecting to receive 1 million doses of the government-procured one-shot Sputnik Light COVID-19 vaccine and another 190,000 doses of Sputnik V this month. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said Sputnik Light could help the country achieve population protection by the end of the year. The Food and Drug Administration approved in August the emergency use authorization of Sputnik Light from Russia. Galvez also allied the concerns of those who have yet to receive their second dose of Sputnik V. He said the gap between first and second doses of Sputnik V can be as long as 6 months. He also said the arriving shipment of Sputnik V vaccines shall be used for the second dose. The Philippines has administered over 40 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine nationwide as of September 15. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 said over 22 million have received the first shot, while 17.6 million have completed 2 doses. An average of 407,000 doses are administered daily in the last 7 days, with 2,010 operating vaccination sites nationwide. Vaccine Czar and NTF Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said more than 34 million COVID-19 vaccines are set to be delivered within this month. The Philippines has so far accumulated 57.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. Galvez thanked the World Health Organization for helping the country in securing more vaccines. The government targets to achieve a population protection by end of this year by inoculating 70% of the country's 110 million estimated population. The Department of National Defense is coordinating with Japan to get more details on its advisory on possible terror attacks in 6 countries in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said they have yet to get a response from Japan's defense attaché at its embassy in Manila regarding their request for information on the matter. Earlier this week, Japan's foreign ministry issued an alert cautioning its citizens in the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Myanmar against possible terror attacks. Lorenzana said he was surprised by Tokyo's advisory, considering that the Philippines has a lot of experience in terrorist attacks compared to Japan. He meanwhile added that troops are always on alert for terror attacks as the Philippines have been combating terrorists since the 1990s. Lorenzana said the intelligence community has yet to detect the presence of foreign terrorists operating in the country. Malacanang said the Philippines has long remained under heightened alert to suppress lawless violence and rebellion in the country. In a palace press briefing, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the country had stepped up security measures since the clashes between the terrorist Maute group and the government troops in Marawi City, Lanao del Sur in 2017. He assured that the country's law enforcement authorities will monitor and tighten security. In the same briefing, Philippine National Police Chief General Guillermo Eleazar said the PNP has no report on terror threats in the country related to Japan's warning. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, meanwhile, said the current threat level in the country is moderate. The Japanese embassy in Manila earlier confirmed that the Japanese government received information about possible terrorist attacks in the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Myanmar. The Philippine Statistics Authority warns Filipinos who already have Phil ID cards against revealing their details to the public, especially online. The lead implementing agency for the PhilSys or Philippine Identification System told Phil ID holders not to post their physical cards on social media outlets so fraudsters will not be tempted to fake it. PSA Assistant Secretary Rosalinda Bautista said penalties such as criminal charges are in place for those who will attempt to create fake Phil ID cards. The PSA earlier warned the public to be vigilant against scammers posing as employees who unlawfully process and facilitate PhilSys registration with corresponding charges. Bautista reminded the public that the registration under PhilSys remains free of charge. Meanwhile, the PSA announced a milestone in its PhilSys registration with over 30 million Filipinos finishing Phase 2 or the biometrics process amid the pandemic. PSA Undersecretary Dennis Mapa noted the number of registrants despite the varying community quarantine restrictions imposed in some areas. The PSA thanked the public for their continued support and enthusiasm to register for the national ID. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas said its goal to have 70% of adult Filipinos with bank accounts is doable, with people continuing to have financial transactions amid the pandemic-related movement restrictions. Central Bank Governor Benjamin Diokno said registration for the PhilSys national ID system as well as the whole-of-government approach in addressing issues of financial inclusion are pluses to the achievement of this goal. Based on the BSP's Financial Inclusion Survey in 2019, only around 29% of Filipino adults had bank accounts. Diokno attributed the big jump in the number of account ownership last year to the digitalization of financial transactions. He said the distribution of the government's pandemic-related cash aid also helped increase the number of e-money accounts by around 4.5 million. Around 5.3 million Filipinos have opened bank accounts in line with the national ID registration. Up next, around 1,000 workers get jobs for the Build program. And ready to go out this weekend, the doors of Intramuros attractions are open again to visitors. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Ano naman ang warning signs ng paglala ng mga sintomas?
Ang pinaka-importanting bantayan sa mga simptomas na lumalala na related to COVID-19 is really yung hirap sa paghinga. Pwede rin yun na rin na magdala nung confusion, pwede rin yung mga simptomas tulad ng sobrang panghihina kasi halos hindi na makakain, hindi makainom, no? So yung mga ganong klaseng signs, kailangan siyang masubaybayan ng healthcare professional.
Paano ko naman maiiwasang mahawaan ang mga kasama ko sa bahay?
Pinaka-importante dun sa iisipin natin pag tayo nag-isolate is dapat talaga nakabukod tayo sa ibang tao. So, dun lang tayo sa ating silid, dun na tayo kakain, hindi na tayo lalabas hanggang makatapos ng 10 araw. Now, kung tayo naman ay nasa isang lugar na shared bathroom pa rin ang ating ginagamit, sana yung surfaces ng banyo tulad nung yung doorknobs, yung faucet, yung pinaka-surface ng lababo at saka yung pinag-upuan natin sa inidoro, pupunasan muna natin yan bago natin iwanan ng banyo para yung susunod na gagamit hindi naman mahawaan ng ating mga secretions o yung mga tilamsik ng ating laway kung sakasakali naman ay tayo ang gumamit ng banyo.
Sino po ang pwedeng kausapin kung may karagdagang mga tanong pa ako?
Maraming resources sa ating mga communities at napakaraming health workers na handang tumulong. No? So unang-una na siguro doon yung ating mga BHERTs, no? Sila naman ay naabisuhan, o yung mga midwives or nurses sa ating community, even our local health center physicians, they're always ready to help us with our questions.
Maraming salamat, Doc Ana. May mga paalala pa po ba kayo?
Karamihan pa rin naman sa mga kababayan natin nagpa-positive for COVID ay nabibilang dun sa mild and asymptomatic category. So, mukha namang kaya, no? Most of the time, nababantayan itong ating mga kapamilya within the home. Ang importante lang, siguro, habang maaga, meron ng link to telemedicine o kaya nakausap natin yung ating mga barangay or community healthcare workers para kung sakasakalit medyo lumala yung lagay ng ating kapamilya ay nakaset up na kung anong susunod nating gagawin. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat and mag-ingat po tayo.
Bida Solusyon Plus laban sa COVID-19.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Communications Secretary Martin Andanar appealed to the Senate to support the proposed 1.91 billion peso budget of the Presidential Communications Operations Office and its attached agencies. At the budget deliberation before the Senate Committee on Finance on Thursday, Andanar said the Senate's support will help the PCOO better communicate the government's achievement to the Filipino people. Andanar said the proposed budget will be used to continue the PCOO's mission to drum up support for the presidency's program and policies and to serve as a tool for informing, educating, and enlightening the public. Among the PCOO's goals are the operationalization of the Government Communication Academy, the completion of a Visayas media hub, and the upgrade and repair of government-run radio stations. Task Force Bangon Marawi on Thursday inaugurated 2 mosques and other infrastructure projects in Marawi City as part of the rehabilitation of the war-torn city. More on this from Claire Gighe.
As the city gears for its rehabilitation with the efforts of the national government through the Task Force Bangon Marawi or TFBM, more infrastructures and mosques were welcomed in Marawi City. 4 additional barangay complexes and 2 mosques were inaugurated yesterday during the visit of TFBM Chief Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario in the city. Among the open complexes were those of barangays Datunaga, Datu Sudansalan, Mungkado Kadingilan, and West Marinaut. Del Rosario said the barangay complexes, which have their own madrasa, barangay office, and health center, symbolize authority and leadership that would translate into the exercise of good governance.
This is a symbol not only of organization but of good governance that our barangay leaders will do once they have these barangay complexes. Ito po ay isang simbolo that we are moving forward.
Barangay executives then gave their thanks to the national government for the completion of construction of their new complexes.
I would like to extend my utmost gratitude in providing not only this barangay complex, but also for giving us hope. A hope to rebuild our home, a hope for a better future for us, for our children, and to the next generation.
Meanwhile, Masjid Marinaut and White Mosque were also inaugurated in response to the prioritization of destroyed mosques in the city. City Mayor Mahul Gandamra stressed that despite the separation of the church and the state, the national government still strive to restore the destroyed mosques, as these are seen to play a significant role in the Islamic way of life of the residents.
While it is clearly stated in our constitution the separation of state and religion, it could not be denied that Islam is the way of life among Muslims or Maranaos, and thus, because the national government through the Task Force Bangon Marawi ensures the holistic development of our city.
Next month, the Grand Mosque is expected to be inaugurated, while more infrastructures are seen to be completed. For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gighe of the Philippine Information Agency Ligan City Information Center.
Over 1,000 workers have been hired nationwide by the Department of Public Works and Highways for Build projects. Based on the latest data of the agency on Thursday, 457 of these workers are from Luzon, 302 workers are from the Visayas, and some 225 workers are from Mindanao. Meanwhile, the DPWH Unified Project Management Office hired 85 workers, while its Public-Private Partnership Office hired 21 workers. DPWH Secretary Mark Villar said the Build program will continue to create employment opportunities through its Bigay Trabaho online program. Job seekers may contact the DPWH via landline, Viber, or email. The city government of Zamboanga has released a cash incentive to a centenarian in recognition of her contribution to society. 100-year-old Angelina Santos from Barangay Kabatangan received the cash award from Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar and Councilor Josephine Pareja on Thursday. Under a city ordinance, a centenarian will receive 50,000 pesos as cash incentive, which is the city government's counterpart to the incentives granted by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. The DSWD gives a cash incentive of 100,000 pesos as a way of honoring and recognizing the contributions of senior citizens to the society. Santos turned 100 years old last August 1. Here's something for Metro Manila tourists to look forward to this weekend. Fully vaccinated people aged 18 to 65 years old are entitled to a special express lane when they visit parts of Intramuros. NCR residents who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 can use the express lane when visiting Fort Santiago, Baluarte de San Diego, or Plaza San Luis to speed up their entry. Fully vaccinated visitors will only need to undergo the mandatory temperature check and fill up the contact tracing form when already inside the sites. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat led the reopening of the 3 Intramuros sites on Thursday, the first day of pilot of COVID-19 alert level system in Metro Manila. Romulo Puyat said she is hoping that the interagency task force will soon allow fully vaccinated senior citizens to visit Intramuros. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The Philippines updates its list of red, yellow, and green countries. 4 more states joined the red list, which means travelers from these areas are not allowed to enter. More doses of hope. Over 661,000 Astrazeneca vaccines are set to boost inoculation drive, particularly among private sector workers, in a bid to spur economic recovery amid the pandemic. The government remains on alert against terror threats. The country's defense chief says he awaits feedback from Japan regarding a request for details of its terror alert. And looking forward to the weekend, attractions in Intramuros reopen for tourists, with fully vaccinated visitors getting an express lane. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear face masks and face shields. Wash your hands often. Practice safe physical distancing. Go out only for essential reasons. And get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. It's 99 days before Christmas, and despite the current pandemic, we still enjoin everyone to keep hopeful and still prepare for the coming birth of Christ. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I am Marita Muaje. Have a good day.